What a crowd, huh? You must all be exhausted after 2049 and hundreds of events, huh? So there's me and then one more session, and then it's open bar, I believe, huh? So what I really wanted to talk about today was actually where are we? Because there's different ways of asserting where we are on the journey of blockchain. And I think one thing we have to be really cognizant of is that there's been a lot of amazing innovation in the past. Really incremental innovation who changed operating models. And in a way, what we saw is that innovation can only change an operating model if it goes beyond the decades of time. And Bitcoin just did that. We had another halving. How many of you actually been through 2 halvings? Up with your hands. Yeah, cool. What about 3? Yeah, there's a couple. That's good. So when we look at Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the technology who has the longest uptime of any critical infrastructure. And yes, I use the word critical infrastructure on purpose here. What's interesting is that any critical infrastructure out there is normally being taken down, like a monthly scale. In a bank, I used to build banks for a living. We take it down every, 6 days to patch it and work on it and so on, right? But Bitcoin just keeps producing blocks. Isn't that amazing, right? And everybody was sort of guessing on saying, oh, hold on a second, with the next halving, would the miners go out of business, what's going to happen? But no, it won't. Right? It's a super stable code. And what really has happened is that even institutions, nation states, people are really using this incremental innovation that everybody can have access to an asset class wherever you are without going through an intermediary. Now, there is a pressure on centralized exchanges and banks and so on around AML and KYC. So yes, there is some things there. But I think we are sort of at the time where we can say that Bitcoin is one of those incremental innovations where humanity in about 50 years, 100 years is going to look back and say that started a new operating model. So the question is, where are we right now with the halving just being there, and where are we going in the future? The future, I believe, is going to be about social and regulatory enablers for adoption. That's going to bring us really far. But where are we right now? This is a snapshot from Cardano from yesterday. And what I'm really, really interested in seeing is that everybody speaks about cryptocurrencies. When you look here on the left side of this slide, what you see is that the largest token, well, you can discuss the metrics, right? But the largest token on Cardano is artificial intelligence. I guess that's, it's a hype, right? There's a lot of things happening. That's good. The next one is telecommunication, right? So when you start sort of walking down that list, right, you see a meme coin, you see cloud services, lending, borrowing, book publishing, compute, DEX, synthetics, right? What you're actually starting to see is you're seeing different industries starting to do enterprise adoption. Some of those industries, like telecom, is actually critical infrastructure. This is infrastructure where you need, large audit companies going in. This is infrastructure where if that doesn't work, you know what, the internet is not available. If the internet is not available, there might be doctors who don't know how to operate, right? So what we're talking about now is we are getting out of the situation that Bitcoin is the only innovation which is happening. With these so-called third-generation blockchains, such as Cardano, Polkadot, Algorand and others, this magic is happening right now. Actually, the promise we set when we set out about 8-9 years to build a new world system is what is happening right now. What that's going to do is it's going to bring us to 1 billion users of blockchain. 1 billion users who doesn't even know they use a blockchain. That means that you here in this room, you will be the filthy few. You will be the few people who actually understand how the blockchain works, but there will be 1 billion people who's actually going to reap the benefits. And what's so terrifying about this is we actually have to go back in time about 3-4 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago, and we have to look at when we looked at the true potential of what blockchain can be, and there we have to find the solution. So the solution is 4 things. The first one is digital identity. Now, some of you will say, well, we do have digital identity, we have wallets, we have mnemonics, right? But that's sort of still actually the era of Bitcoin. What we really need to get to is we need to get to a sort of a self-sovereign identity / national identity on one axis. And then on the other axis, we have a machine identity. Identity for robots, for productions, for facility, for Internet of Things. And these has to be run not in a blockchain standard. These has to be run in a standard which the existing society actually accepts already today. If we run that on native blockchain, we won't get this adoption. So we in the Cardano Foundation have chosen to work with something called Carry and V3C, which basically is two standards, which is very well known in the Web 2 space, but is also the standard which banks has been using since 2018 when they've been doing paper trading with each other. So everybody who has a LEI number, which probably is all the exchanges in here, plus all the banks and all the foundations like me, right? We know very well what that is, because that's the banking digital identity for our entity, right? Which was forced down upon us after the last financial crisis. But we can actually use this for enterprises to identify themselves. By having multiple identities on blockchains, which is interoperable with Web 2 and the classical world and other blockchains, we get to a situation that we can verify centralized oracles and centralized data streams, but we can also guarantee if there is a production line or a machine identity or a satellite who puts data into an internet, we don't have to use math. Well, math is great, but we've seen again and again on the last sort of 4 years of adoption in blockchain that our oracles who's based on math, they don't 100% work because we don't have enough data points. We don't have enough data points because we can't guarantee the input for that. We can't guarantee the input for that because we don't have a good enough digital identity, right? So these oracles is going to live on top of these digital identities, and now we have the opportunity of the solution making we have been trying to do with algorithmic oracles, plus we have the Bloombergs, the Reuters, the Wolfram Alphas, and all of those kind of fantastic oracles which this reinsurance industry is already using today to price, well, I was about to say to price natural catastrophes like just happened here, but probably that's a force majeure, right? But this is being used in the real world today to do that. And what that's going to do for us is it going to allow us to do something which is even more interesting, and that is, and I say zero knowledge proofs here a little bit as a larger thing, because zero knowledge proof does two things for us, right? One thing, it brings scalability, because we'll be able to do on layer 1s what layer 2s is only able to do, right? So transactions per second and speed and all those kind of things, because we are separating the proof from the transaction. So speed is one thing, but we can also a certain speed like what we do with isomorphic state channels and Hydra and other things. But what's even more interesting is that there's a big concern from the large corporations and nation states and so forth about, oh, everybody can read my data on the blockchain. And they're like, oh, what do we do? Well, we encrypt it. Well, then I can't use it, right? So this ability we can now do to use one-way hash algorithms, as we have designed for the Dubai police, on forensic fingerprints and ballistic footprints, basically allow them to safeguard the identity of the citizens in Dubai while still running a global matching algorithm which only works one way. And if we then borrow some of the legal principles from EU GDPR and data privacy, who always speaks about reverse solicitation, right? That allows us to do reverse solicitation, right? So this is becoming then a twofold attack vector towards 1 billion people. Because one time we get speed, right? We get real true enterprise speed. But on the other side of that, we have this ability now to use cryptography in a light format to actually ensure that we can separate these proofs and these matching from the actual transactions, which means that enterprises no longer need to be so worried about, oh, I cannot upload anything to a blockchain. But what they need to be able to use this is education. So it's taking us 2 years to work with the Dubai government and to work with the Dubai police to get them comfortable with the principles of a light version of zero knowledge proof. But they are so excited about it that they're bringing it out to the world right now. Having the ability to be the world's first police force to actually offer digital transformation to the countries who cannot afford that themselves, and by that creating an even larger data set without revealing the identity of their people. Which, by the way, is one of the things we're trying to do in blockchain, right? We want to own our own identity, and if we can't own it, we want to at least ensure that where we live has good safeguards around it, right? And if that's not enough, we at least don't want it to be traveling around in some weird databases, right? So this is actually very, very native to why we built blockchain in the first place. The last thing is we always speak about bridges, right? So I put in an IPC bridge for Cardano, for instance, or Milkomita, or EVM and stuff like that. But that's not the real bridges. That's just a part of it. We need to bridge into Oracle. We need to bridge into IBM. We need to bridge into Temenos. We need to ensure that some of those large data providers understand that a blockchain is not a database, right? This is a place where you verify digital signatures, you authenticate data, you allow people to collaborate around global databases, right? And when we start opening up for that, you have a situation which looks like this, right? You have 1 billion people who have no clue that their daily lives is having utility, is having value, because it's run on a blockchain. And you would be the few entrepreneurs, you would be the trailblazers who allows that and is building in the foundational layer for blockchain. That's why the World Blockchain Summit is important. That's why Dubai and the forthcoming public roadmap around how they position themselves in global trade, but also as a global mediating partner in a very unstable society, is actually going to happen. That being said, that's all I wanted to share between now and another session and some beers. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for building.